Okay, I think we can start now, right? I think there's quite a lot of participants ready. So a warm welcome to everybody. Hello and welcome to PubMet 2021, the 8th conference on scholarly communication in the context of open science. So this year we have also prepared a number of interesting topics, from post-open access transitions to scientific communications in times of COVID. But you will hear more about the topics and the conference in tomorrow's opening talks in the morning. And today we start off with plenty of interesting workshops. Just a quick note, if any one of you has registered for our late afternoon 4 o'clock workshop, this one had to unfortunately be cancelled at the last minute because of some unforeseen circumstances, but you are welcome to join us in all other workshops and in the next 2 days, all panel discussions and lectures. First of all, I would like to say that your microphones and cameras are off. And if you wish to ask any questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A. And also you have a chat in which you can communicate with each other privately or with us, and we'll try to monitor all of them and answer as many questions as possible. All right, so our first workshop today is Effective Science Engagement and Media, which will be presented to you by Jadranka Jezeršek, who is a communicator and has a great experience in communication management in the scientific and innovative environments, and she has organized many workshops for journalists covering science and also workshops for scientists. So Jadranka is the best person to tell it herself. So Jadranka, the floor is yours. Go.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm really honored to share some of my insights in science communication and scientific engagement, which is really specifically after the COVID or during the COVID-19 happening, a really very important part of our society. So, scientific research and its results are ever more often the real social, culture, and economic driver. Scientific research and its technological innovation and findings are changing the society. The science changes the way we consumers behave and live, and moreover, it's a basis for a progress of a whole society. So it is essential for science to be seen as a credible partner with a dialogue that participates in the development of life in technological society. Furthermore, the consequence of science and technology is too important to leave them all in the hands of scientists alone, and the relationship between science and society is too important to simply hand it over to non-scientists like stakeholders, regulators, media, and lay public. So society needs science and science needs society. So it's a relationship that proactively involve media, as the media acts as an important translator within the relationship with science. But science communication is not only communication with media and media relationships. So I will now share with you my presentation, where I will try to explore and I will try to give you some insight on effective media communication, on effective science engagement and communication. Well, maybe you all know Carl Sagan for sure. Maybe you know less the Lancelot Hogben, which is a zoologist and medical statisticians. And he was a great researcher at the beginning of the century. And I will start with his story. In the 1938, he decided to write a book on mathematics, because he said, if people would know, if the lay people would know more about mathematics, they would just live better. They would live. They would have less problems in life. They would their headspace would open more, and they would be more competent by guiding their lives. So he decided to write a book, Mathematics for the Million, which is a basic principle for mathematics for people. But he was in 1938. He was just waiting to be given the title of Fellow Royal Society. He didn't want to he didn't want to publish it under his name. So he found a person who borrowed him the name to publish the book on about mathematics for the lay people. So it was only in the early 70s where he exposed himself and told all his scientific collaborators and partners that he was the original, the author of the book. So we can see some sort of a peer pressure here. Yes, and let me share you another story with Carl Sagan, which is even more interesting because it's happening in not really very long ago. In 1992, when Carl Sagan was really, had the status of Hollywood star, where he already went back to his alma mater to Pennsylvania, where he wanted to really focus his life and work on less on science communication or engagement, but more to scientific research. He was nominated for a membership in the National Academy of Science. Academy membership requires distinguished research scholarship, but that's rarely sufficient to ensure just a membership. So the considerable weight is also given to public service, as where more political factors such as where a nominee works and with whom he or she works. So he was nominated to become a member, and the most colleagues who were the board of a National Academy of Science didn't refuse him because and he was blackballed in the first voting round, and they required a full debate and another vote by the Academy membership, which was really quite a shock to a part of the science community who was supporting his work. Well, in the final debate, he barely received 50% yes votes. And 2 years later, the National Academy awarded Sagan with its prestigious Public Welfare Medal. So maybe also to compensate for his earlier rejections. And the damage was done also to him, as he was really perceived by millions of people as a really credible, honorable, and really popular scientist. So another peer pressure. Important from those two stories is that usual and the scientists are, and I also encounter nowadays, they are not really very confident entering outside their labs. And the hierarchy within the scientists is really very strong. So usually it is that you really have to the research institution supports more the senior researchers who decided with their good, credible and research record to come and speak about their science on the behalf of science, their discipline or the research institute. So another important fact is when we speak about science that it's a Bodmer report. Walter Bodmer and his wife, they were again biologists. And they in 1985 he wrote to Royal Society, and he wrote a so-called Bodmer report. And with this report, he really changed the attitudes between the Royal Society, because he called for action. He called that scientists should not be an isolated part of the society. They have to speak up, they have to go up front, they have to take more action on showing the scientific research, scientific results, as science really changes society. So this Bodmer report, as I said, changed attitudes within the Royal Society, opened the way for so many initiatives. Especially the Royal Society and the British academia between to open for science, for media. They started to organize the National Science Week. They start to giving prizes, and they even decide in a London University science communication for undergraduate and postgraduate courses. So it's not so far away that we speak about the importance of the science communication. So now, if we come back to reality, what's how the science communication is important now. It might sound really easy to do, right? Communicate about science. From the very beginning of our training, we kind of learn different languages, right? We start to and it's really easy for us to make.
Jadranka, I'm sorry, but we can't hear anything. Can you volume it up?
How shall I do it?
The volume on your laptop, maybe computer.
Okay.
Increase it.
And we go again.
Yes. Can you replay it?
Okay, I will do that. Just a moment. Let's try now.
When you share, try to click the option share computer audio next to the volume, to the microphone.
Just a moment, sorry for that.
Okay.
don't know how to do it, you know.
Next to the microphone, there is a little arrow.
Yeah.
And when you click it, you have some options. Can you see it?
Audio settings.
Just above audio settings, there should be select a microphone, select.
Yes, but I have it on.
Yes.
I have it on. Okay, now I will again share the screen and
try again.
If not, then we continue, and I will hand up the slides, and you have the link to the video.
Okay.
And I will resume the video if you don't hear it.
Okay. Okay.
It might sound a bit right? Communicating about science might sound but it's not. From the very beginning of our training, everyone around us. A, that we're scientists. B, that we're doing really, really cool things. So now, have you heard anything?
Unfortunately, no, but
okay,
we can skip it and.
Okay. Yes. Well,
people can download the presentation and hear it later.
I will wrap up.
Okay.
People think that science communication is it's easy, but it's not, because scientists and lay public, they use different language. Since the scientists enter in a scientific career, they use different words, they are focused on details, and many times they forget about, because they are so occupied with scientific community, with publishing, with writing articles. They forget to communicate. They forget to about telling people what they do. And the lady, she said that it's up to scientists to challenge themselves to be more open about their science and to be more open about what they do for society. So I would add to all this that science really is. That science is really difficult to communicate, because it is always part of the context. I'm specialized in science communication and scientific engagement for last almost 15 years. I'm quite active within the network of public understanding of science and technology. I work with European institutions, and I work with institutes local here in Slovenia and in vicinity of Slovenia. But I have to say that I haven't encountered, and this is always a peer-to-peer discussion when the science communicators, when we enter into our communication, in our discussions, we always say it's not copy-paste. It's impossible, because it's impossible to do the same science communication in Japanese National Nuclear Institutes, with their context, with their capacities, with their social challenges, and it's completely different to any other Alpine Institute in Trento, for example. It's completely different story, and you have to contextualize. If you don't contextualize, then you don't make yourself understandable. And I have here, for example, some books. For example, Communicating Science, a Practical Guide for Engineer and Physical Scientists, which is another story. Then I have here a book on selling your research. Then I have here a book on creativity in research. They're all like a partial minimum, partial skills or capacities or knowledge that you can use as a source when you communicate science. And it's actually for scientists a new job to learn. It gives a visibility and trust to research organization. It helps you to enter in a dialogue with society, with policymakers, with business, with innovators, with future researchers, with young people. But do we know how to do it? We are not educated. Well, scientists are not educated. How to speak, how to read, how to write for a lay public, or for other non-scientific audiences. And I do see that research organizations or institutes, they don't have strategies for implementation. They don't have the teams to enable and to help entering in a dialogue with a society when at risk, as now in a corona crisis. And many times scientists and the teams around them, they don't know really how to deal with fake science. And my great takeaway from this hour with me would be, please do not consider that science communication is only communication with media. It is. Media are very important translator of the science, but it's not just media. It's like, I always say, it's like a palm of hand, every finger on the hand that it has its function. So you have to communicate with lay public, you have to communicate with regulators, you have to communicate with other supportive scientists. You have to speak with future scientists and media, but not just media. It's a false. It's not adequate. So please participate, and Jadranka, I will ask you to help me with the moderation of the debate. I would like to pick your brain. Which research institute is your a role model for communicating their science? How they address you? And how do you get their message? Maybe just, if you give me 1 or 2 reflections, I would be happy. Just to continue with the next topic which I'm bringing you. So, any ideas?
So they can write answers in the chat.
Yes, and I would ask you to just pick me 1 or 2 models.
Okay.
Cases or answers.
Okay, so please, you can write all your institutions in the chat, and I will read them out.
What's your role model? Top of the head. Don't overthink.
Institution.
Yes.
Oh, here it is. Someone wrote Mayo Clinic in Croatia.
Yeah.
Ruđer Bošković Institute. Ruđer Bošković.
Nice.
Understandable messages on Facebook and so on. So we have 2, Mayo Clinic and Ruđer Bošković Institute from
Zagreb. Yeah, Mayo Clinic, absolutely very good case. And also Ruđer Bošković, although I don't know really details about their scientific engagement, but the point is that obviously that research institute organization, has to build knowledge, has to build teams, has to build strategy. Then when this acceptance for or support for science communication or scientific engagement is within the research institution, then they trickle down to projects, to teams, and then they can trickle down to some issues which can be or ad hoc opportunities for science communication. And all this like a system approach really adds the reputation and really makes impact of a research institute. So obviously Mayo Clinic and Ruđer Bošković Institute, they had their reputation, and obviously they made its impact that people recognize them as a responsible institutions. So I will now go through those three levels. First, how to progress a science communication within the research institutions. So what can you learn about that? How the research institution can then support scientists and teams, and then little, not a lot, I will tell about the ad hoc and ad hoc communication opportunities and issue communication. So research institutions, they have many reasons why they have to communicate, because they always hungry for more resources. They always eager for a new collaboration. They look for future young researchers. As we know, the generations and the talents the generations are shrinking, and the talents are really important. So it's really many non-scientific reasons why a science institution or a research institution have to communicate. And from the point of view of scientific engagement, is really not only good, but it's also important that they build inside out, like they are proud of their science, they tell the stories, they even with communicating and engaging, they justify their budgets. Most majority of public research institutions are funded by public. So with engaging, we avoid fake science, and and the science institutions, they became with scientific engagement, they are member in a dialogue, they are listened, which is the point, because everything what science does is actually fact-based. And if we learn and educate people to listen to the facts and listen to the scientists, their life then is more reliable. It's more, they know how to use the right sources. They trust. They are safer. So the science really has to come out of its ivory tower with storytelling, which encounters or grasps some emotions, with the good presentations, with the presentations that are easy to understand. Scientists can facilitate the discussion, and they can be a moderator between many different topics. And here is for example, the web page of CERN, where they have their science communication distributed or organized by. For me, as a lay person, I go to the CERN webpage, and I can orient myself by what I'm looking for, what kind of material I'm looking for, and who am I. So if I define myself as, for example, as industrial partner, probably the whole system will offer me some topics and formats that might be interesting for me as an industrial partner. So this is how CERN enables and helps navigate a lay public to, or general public, to come and meet and understand what they do. The same is University College London. When you enter their webpage, it's, of course, it's about their science, but and their and all about what they do, but everything is explained when you first meet them on a web page in a very general and understandable language. So science engagement is important because of the impact, because science has the result, because of the knowledge that you create, and because you do science makes better society. So let's now go and see more about how you can build scientific engagement competencies within the research institution or organization. It's usually, as I work with science institutions, I can see, and because of the specifics of certain field, there is rarely that, for example, as I mentioned, in a Japanese National Institute for Nuclear Research, they were looking for a science engagement officer, but the demand was PhD in physics, specifically in some branch of nuclear physics. So first, you have to know what your science is about. Then you have to be strategic about it. You have to have, as an institution, also goals. Not only what you do, not only research goals, but also what you would like to do, what you would like to show, what kind of image you would like to mirror in the society. It's and the building reputation, scientific reputation, is nowadays as important as building reputation with other non-scientific audience. And then when you speak about communication strategy, you have to the strategy has to contain internal and external activities. It's not only about how we communicate outside. So it's not only about press releases. It's also how one department share its knowledge with another department, how we support each other, how we create this culture of scientific engagement. So, and the part of this communication strategy has to be there, the adequate communication tools that are important for engagement with particular public. And when we go and when we see this, the cake of all stakeholders or audiences that we are addressing, media is just one part of it. And if you are a member of a team within the research institute with the responsibility of preparing the communication strategy, and you put down and you map all the stakeholders, it's obvious that the communication tools which you use for local community, it's not the same as you use for regulators. The communication tools which you use for peers, it's not the same as you use for finance or future financiers. So it's really, you have to slice your your communication tools, what you can do, what you would like to do, and what's the impact that you can that you can do. And when you speaking about the audience, you have to know, you have to explore who they are, what's the level of their knowledge, how you would like to maintain a dialogue, how to prepare your presentations, and how to what's the purpose, what's the message, what you would like to what's the goal. And I always go, and that's also one of the takeaways, I always go with every communication activity that is already planned, but you have to, even one event, and even if you say scientific engagement conference, you can always narrow it down and make it more specific, and you can always dig into the audience, and in the context, the way you can always improve the level of understanding of your science, the communication tools that you can use. You can be more creative, and what kind of support material you use for any communication activities for particular audience. So for research institution, of course, the communication with media is essential because they are translator. And I will now, in my presentation, focus on communication with media, although I urge that if in your research institution the science communication means only communication with media, you are limiting yourself, you are limiting the potentials of scientific engagement. But now let's go to media. So scientists and media, they have many differences. One of the differences I said earlier in the beginning, the scientists, they are using different language, they go into details. Scientists, they are trained to be not to comment the things that they are not expert in. So but the mutual objective of science of scientists and media is educating, giving new knowledge, publish news. And when we speak about journalists, editors, and media, we have to know that the journalists, they write, but in media, the editor decides. And they always, media, they always go for what's the news? What can I say? The media usually, they look for a right context. Sometimes they look for controversy, but generally when they encounter us with science, they try to hook for the right context for their readership, and they always try to publish the news. So they always try, usually media, they go for black and white scenario. So this is something that I would like to talk about. When you speak with science journalists, with eminent science journalists, and I had a privilege to work with some. They usually they hold a scientific or non-journalistic studies. So, for example, I had a privilege to work and to host Ian Sampo. He's he's editor of science communication at Guardian in Slovenia, and he told me that, for example, the science section of Guardian is one of the most prestigious part of Guardian. They nurture science, because it's one online. It's one of the most read parts of their web page within international community. So when they find when they even follow that, when they have a regular reader, for example, from Japan, of Guardian Science, then when they read Guardian Science, or they enter in the web page of reading Guardian Science, then they also they explore other topics. They look for. They had a rule within their editorial that they don't present a black and white stories, in the sense of they really stick to the science journalism, which is non-objective. So they go for facts. They compare facts. They don't compare views. They compare. If one scientist, they always look that the both scientists that they are matching, or could be with different opinions, but they are on the same level. They use multiple resources, and they really check what the format of their stories. They think about. They sometimes they make it personal, sometimes not. Sometimes they go for issue management, like climate change, and they go for a stream. So it's I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Slovenia we do have a privilege to have a science to have some science journalists who are excellent, who are specifically dedicated to science journalism, and so it's easier to work with them because they are specialized. But when you are encountering the journalist who is not specialized on science or reporting on science reporting, then you really have to support him. In media, usually the editor decides. Editor decides usually, if it's not a science section or a science editorial, the editor gives instructions, or gives decides who will write or who will cover the story, how what's the space dedicated, how much time they had. Because why? Because they know the readers. And if I here is the map of media outlets that are mostly use and report evidence-based, and we can see that within the media environment, or we have the people who are professionally interested audience. So that would be people who are professionally involved in science, and need to keep track of science for their own work. They are readers of Nature, Science, New Scientist, and so on. Then you have a casually interested audience, which is a scientific, like National Geographic audience. This is the audience that seeks science. They want to know more about science. They are attracted by science. You know, we can find them here somewhere. But then there are also casually this interested audience. These are people who are looking for news. They're looking for other news, not specifically for science. These are mass media audience, but if they encounter news about science, they will grab it. So as a research institutions, as a team within the research institutions, we need to be able to work with all three types of journalists, and we have to support them the way as much as we can. So I would like to ask you now if there is any reflection where you work. What are your experiences with media? Jadranka, if you are here, maybe you can help me with some answers.
All right. So would you like to answer some questions before, or shall we wait for them to write?
Yeah. Please. Go with questions. Go with questions and then answers.
Okay. There is one question from Eva Graberi-Chandanov. She says, I would like to hear more about examples of poor communication and media management. Do you think that World Health Organization did a poor job in handling COVID-19 pandemic and contributed to the disinformation?
Yeah, it's really very hard to give a bad example, because a bad example is always part of the social context, specifically in COVID. When I was preparing for myself on this workshop, I encountered in Journal of Science Communication, the Journal of Science Communication, and it was in July edition of last July. I encountered the article, the COVID-19 Mirror, the Reflecting Science Society Relationships Across 11 Countries. So whenever I judge bad or good science communication, is always part of the social context. Every country has own politicians, which more or less they owned the agenda of COVID. From scientists, I would say that scientists, they were not exposed right at the beginning as much as the healthcare community. The healthcare community is not necessarily always scientific community. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. And it's, for me, would be really very difficult to judge, you know, and to now put the sticker on some really bad case of COVID-19, because everything is really part of the context. But what I can say is that COVID-19 communication, you know, communication engagement really revealed the future opportunities of science communication, which means that we have to train scientists. We have to learn them. We have to teach them, sorry, to collaborate with other scientists when such a general topic as health is involved within the society. They have to get together, they have to talk with each other, and they have to support each other. Then we can see that COVID-19 was really a challenge for general audience, and it really exposed also the relationship between, you know, the decision makers, the science, and the general public. And I think that if we are hopefully looking outside the COVID-19 situation, I hope that it will be a good lesson to learn how to structure and strategically prepared for the next social challenges like this, because there will be quite some of them, and they are already on a horizon, like climate change, like the weather, the weather circumstances. So it's very evident that scientists, they lack skills of communicating.
Right. And here we have one comment in the chat about your question. They say that most time when they deal with journalists, that they are poorly prepared for their interviews.
Yeah. This is the problem, because they are not specialized. They are covering science as they cover politics and sport, and then I don't know how it is in science journalism is not a discipline taught in all the universities, including in Slovenia. I'm also speaking in Slovenia. So when the young journalists enter into the media space, they are taught to cover most politics and sport. So the politics and sport, they are very you have to know what's the statement of one and of the other, losers and winners and losers, and all the time comparing and creating this kind of takeaway message. But within the science, when you encounter science journalists, they are much more they prepare, they explore, they know how to learn, how to look for into the scientific sources. They know how to read scientific, or they learned themselves how to read scientific reports. And for example, when you look at MIT, they have a science night science journalism program. They invite senior journalists who have some very good track record. They are they're on the top of their career, and they would like to move their career into the science, because they are less they have maybe more time, more a mission to accomplish, to participate the improvement of the society. So they if we have a luck and to work with a journalist who or she or he is competent or had skills in science journalism, then we have luck. If not, we have to prepare, we have to work with journalists. Okay, so let's go. I will continue, and while I will continue, I will also give you some hints how to prepare yourself to work with journalists. So it really helps when you think about the parallels that you make for your story, the context that you present, and you will. Of course, if you have a new, or you published a very breakthrough scientific research, of course your goal is to let people know about your research. But media, they are not interested in your PR. They are interested in what's the news for me. How can I present this finding with the language of my readers? Because what journalist knows more is their audience, and you know more about your research. So when encountering with a journalist, do your homework and ask him a lot of questions. Who is the audience? What kind of a story would he like? Would he present? What would be how? And then you shape your message. Then you shape your whys. Then you, after speaking with him, you know, here I have to be careful. I have to lead him not to misinterpret my findings. And then you also can think how to present that it will make it easier for a journalist to understand. And in science, usually structure your research question, then you start with a hypothesis or question, then you present your research, and then at the end are findings. But when you speak with journalists, you have to use the reverse pyramid. When speaking, when preparing your piece of information, you have to think it completely the other way around. So what's your finding? So that your conclusion comes first and has to be packed in a about 30 most important words. With this, you create hook. And then you go to the arguments, then you go to explanation, then you provide some statements, some photos, some information, some endorsement. And then at the end, then you give some more opportunities for those who are interested in other sources or more related with your research. And also, when you have a big research results to present, it's all about the good presentation also goes with the communication tool that you present. Shall you go to a press conference, or you just go for a press release? Shall we organize event? What kind of event? What kind of presentation will we have? Shall we mix audiences? So shall we sit 5 journalists in the first row and then the scientific audience in the rest of the rows? How and to which extent and when to involve social media? And so everything is a part of this strategy. What is, and always, what is my outcome? What's my message? How I would like to be presented? What's my reputation? What's, as a scientist, how I would like to be presented, and what's the representation of my institute? I strongly support good preparation of visual materials, because visual materials, they create much more understanding, they save time in explanation, they enhance attention, also because you use codes like gas is green, water is white, air is blue, fire is red. So you use codes that people understand. And also, when you have the presentation, a live presentation, the visual material and support help you with controlling the time and nervousness, because you can relax, because you can explain, you can have your moment while explaining the science when you have a good visual representation. And also, when presenting, you try to, even if you are presenting, if this presentation is your first meeting with journalists, prepare yourself really very well and try to alert its curiosity. Try to involve some questions, interesting social facts, so that you will get into the right, that you will get the right energy also, and the interest on the side of the journalist. So if you have by presenting your scientific research, you usually work with all media, not necessarily all the media outlets that are on your market. Usually you try to control the message, and you try to also to level. Maybe you dedicate more time to national newspapers or to the national media, to the science, to the research, to the journalists that are more competent on covering science than less. Maybe you write 2 types of press releases. Maybe you make 2 rounds of press events. So, but you always, and it's good that you not only that you prepare a written statement like for press, internet, and social networks, but that you also record yourself or record a statement that it's also applicable and that can be used for radio, and that can add up the written message. When you write the written statement, I said as before, please remember the reverse pyramid. The lead is very important, and the lead it works like appetizer, and and should be informative, catchy, should answer the questions, should answer the curiosity, which is later on explained with the text. For it's I usually write quite a lot of, or I would say I correct quite a lot of press releases, because press release written by scientists usually, not necessarily, but usually uses different language, more scientific, long complicated sentences, and citation that are not necessarily always relevant for media, for outlets, for media, for journalists. So maybe a hint to write short sentences, translate your complicated scientific language into more simple, but not too simple, but be and take care that you may take care that you are not going to feel a peer pressure, that stay within the margin of your science. So don't oversimplify. The same could be applicable for radio and podcasts. A very good advantage, a very great advantage of radio is that usually you have more time. You can explain more. You can prepare better because you have more time. You can have handouts. You can refer to handouts. You should not read because it's immediately obvious that you read. But time and podcast really is, I think it's a very good medium for scientists because they give the time for explanation, and you can prepare well, but you are not so pressured with physical appearance as, for example, TV. For radio, it's important that you prepare. With that you put down your keywords. The keywords are your key messages. That you work on your voice range, so that you things that you stress, that you maybe say louder. Then that you use pauses. Usually you use pause after stressing some the keywords, so that you modulate, that you use your voice modulation in order to present better your content. With TV, it's all about the looks, really, and it's even one first shot is important. I spoke the other day with one of the anchors at the Slovenian national news. He's an anchor at the main evening TV news, and he told me that they are observing that, especially after now in Corona times, when people are a lot of internet and they use digital sources, visual sources much more than before. People skip after 5 seconds, they switch channels, and after 5 seconds, if you don't present, if your presentation at the first, the first shot is not interesting, or doesn't capture the idea that you would like to tell, or if you're not good, then you lost. Then it's a very big possibility that you will lose the audience. So again, short, prepare yourself better, work with journalists, prepare on TV presentation or on TV interview. If it's possible, limit yourself to the messages that you would like to speak about. It's very interesting. It's very important, the body language, so that you are relaxed, that you have body language, not body noise. That's why, for example, today I'm standing while presenting to you, because I can fix my posture better when I'm standing, that I could subconsciously move on my chair, and this is really very, it's a body noise, it's not a body language. So control, fix your chair. If somebody is doing a Zoom interview, don't this body noise really can make people to switch on the other channel. So try to prepare yourself with good messages, and then yeah. So any questions by now, Jadranka?
Sorry, let me just unmute myself. There is just one question from earlier, and that is, in your opinion, should journalists covering science need to have more general knowledge about science, and should they be educated to some extent, for example, in health sciences, to be able to cover the news regarding pandemic?
Definitely. The best science journalists I met in foreign media they have a career, they studied science or some branch of science. So I strongly believe that science is appealing for senior journalists. And I strongly believe that we have to support every single journalist that is covering science, any kind of science, chemistry, life science, biotechnology, economics, or humanities. Every scientist needs a support. What I would suggest is that also the research institute, so they do. For example, here in Slovenia, we have a National Institute for Chemistry, and they have every year they have a week of open days, and always they dedicate some of their external engagement at this particular week of National Institute of Chemistry. They dedicate to journalists. And they invite some hosts, they talk about how to cover science, how to support science journalism, because also editors sometimes, because they are stretched over so many issues or tasks within the outlet, they all sometimes they also need to a support, so that somebody say, oh, we really like how this journalist covering science, we follow the competencies of science journalism in your outlet, we support that. Please, how can we help to support science journalism in your magazine or in your newspaper? So it's always a relationship. It's really, it's very important relationship of research institute or university, and it's with relationships is pretty much the same in business or in your private life. You have to engage, you have to work all the time, and you have to think about each other. You know, you have to think about what they would like to know from our latest research, how they could cover our budget shortage, why they would cover the budget shortage. Okay, you know, so it's not only scientific results, it's trickling down to the whole field of science. And I think that working closely with journalists or empowering them, educating them, it's a very good thing. I organized workshops for journalists, for science journalists, with their peers. So, as you know, it's the same as in science. You know, science is you know, that scientists respect opinion of his peer, and also the journalists respect the opinion of his peers. So I invited the New York Times columnist George Johnson to come to Ljubljana and have a workshop. Then I invited Vivian Perry. She was a host of the BBC science show. And then Deborah Bloom, she's a professor at MIT. She's head of the program of a night science journalism program, and she's also a Pulitzer award receiver. So she got she came to Ljubljana, and she had a course, a workshop. So you have to, and many resources are available, but you have to really empower and work on your capacities if you are a journalist.
Yeah, there is an interesting comment in the chat section. The problem is that the level of journalism in general is falling. So journalists usually cover science very superficially or poorly because they don't have enough time to devote to researching topics that they are writing about. And I think we've noticed it here in our country as well, that journalists just decide they want to write on a certain topic and they just go unprepared, and they don't know how to ask right questions and how to interpret the answers that they receive.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem that they look for sensations, they oversimplify it, they are sometimes inaccurate, and they misinterpret it. These are the great worries of scientists about when encountering with journalists. I completely agree. But I also believe that this is because research organizations, I'm not pointing at scientists now, that research organizations are rarely proactive. Usually they are reactive. And when you have a reaction, then you don't control the situation. So when somebody comes within, you know, when the issue comes and the journalists come with a microphone to cover and has 15 minutes to cover your topic, then you might think that you will not cover it, or that you are not prepared enough, or that the context is not the adequate, or the context of, or it's not something that would support your reputation. So that, again, I'm coming to my point that in order to be proactive, in order to control message, in order to be proactive, to be confident in standing up and in presenting in media, scientists do need support with their institution. So I know that many European projects, research projects, they demand dissemination. They demand that you have to do certain things regarding lay public and citizenship science, which is great. But what I can observe is also that research organizations are not doing enough to structure and to guide scientists to do that. And I'm telling you quite confidently that, because I'm a part of one European project which is called SuperMori, and I'm monitoring the universities in Slovenia regarding some soft skills regarding science communication, third mission, gender equality, ethics, their research ethics. And I have to say that I didn't find that many that from the research I did, it's not very obvious that that research institutions or universities, they would have a strategy of proactive communication of their science. So I urge you now, scientists, please support and be proactive in this field within your research institute or research organization. Mm-hmm. It's not about you. Of course, it's a lot about you, about your research, because you are, at the end of the day, you are the one who are presenting, but not without institutional support.
Yes, there is an interesting comment as continuation to this one, as I think that all of us should put more effort into starting science communication programs that will educate scientists for an alternative career in journalism and PR, so they would be much more educated and capable to write about science. Yes, there is indeed a lack in an educational system for some multidisciplinary course or something that would train people in both journalism and scientific areas, so they would know what they're talking about. Do you agree with that?
Definitely. And as I said before, being a member of Public Understanding of Science and Technology Network, which is a peer-to-peer network, we exchange quite a lot of opinions, collaborations, ideas, and initiatives. And I would definitely say that building capacities and skills to communicate with a non-scientific audience is really important capacity of every scientist. It should be regarded with much more respect within the research careers than it is now. As I also lecture in at university or at university courses, I have to say that I encounter a PhD students that they didn't have where in their career they didn't have even 1 hour of presentation skills course realized or offered. So it's of course it's a matter of a personal interest, of course, but not only that. If you are interested in, maybe all the scientists are not interested in scientific career. Maybe they are interested in science engagement careers, and they have to be supported, and they have to encounter the support because they are really very precious. I can see a lot of within this network, we also exchange, you know, when some institution is looking for an expert, science communication expert, and in majority of a marine biology institute in New Zealand, they will not hire a historian for their PR, for their public engagement officer. They would invite a biologist, so someone who understands the science, who is educated in science communication in order to understand also the non-scientific communication tools. So definitely I agree with that.
There is an interesting comment from a colleague from Macedonia, which can be applied even wider. It says journalists in Macedonia are not interested in writing about scientific topics. They are preoccupied with politics and entertainment, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately, but this was also one of my topics with Ian Sample, the science editor of Guardian. They say that they have a politics in Guardian that only about 30% is politics and economy. The rest is are other topics, because that's the outlet, like Guardian is a reflection of our life. Our life is not 100 politics. Our life is a bit of politics, news from politics. We are, of course, interested because, you know, we live in a country, so, you know, we are interested in politics. We are interested in economy because, you know, the economic situation really reflects in many parts of our lives. But we are also interested in environment, in relationships, in traveling. You know, there are all other issues. So if you think that it's too many politics, if media outlets or journalists are only interested in politics, that they are transmitting their agenda, because our agenda, it's not only politics. Our agenda is, you know, how to survive, how to engage, how to have better relationships, where to travel, what to cook. You know, it's, our life is much more than politics. And I think if I use the word of Deb Bloom, which she said, you know, every part of life could be interpreted with science. Even traffic accident. You don't die because of alcohol in a traffic accident. Of course, you had an accident because of alcohol, but you die most usually because of the law of gravity. So even the law of gravity, you can make it. Even air condition, you know, New York, it was a really very remarkable New York Times article on air condition. It was a hot summer holiday in New York a few years ago, and they had an editorial clash about temperature within the room where the journalists were. So the men, they were hot, and women, they were cold. And one science journalist, she got a Pulitzer for her work on Ebola. She said, I will investigate that. And then she really wrote a very good science journalism piece of science journalism, where she said that the air condition, that the perception of the temperature is different between men and women, and she really used great sources, and it, you know, everything in life you can interpret as science, or you can implement some science in it, and vice versa.
every scientist can find a social context that you can explain your science. So it's not only the journalist, it's also we, it's also scientists, how to approach, how to explain, what's the story, what's the parallel. If I may, Jadranka, I will now glance through the rest of my presentation, and then we go to some questions.
Okay.
So now from the corporate and institutional level, I go to a project level. And the project communication plan has to, we're not anymore talking about the strategy. We talk about the action plan. We talk about being proactive. We talked about it just now. And usually a lot of European funded project, they demand operational and task objective dissemination. So again, for every project, you also make mapping. So who you should communicate to. So what's the takeaway message for them? How to prepare a message, and which media to involve. And now I would like really to share some best EU practices on science communication and some resources that you can use while looking for ideas how to present your science. I was collaborating with the team on a responsible research innovation tools project, which is the webpage is www.rritools.eu, which was the consortium of 26 organizations. And we were having many workshops involving really a lot of many different kind of stakeholders in 24 countries across Europe. And we were monitoring the best science communication tools that they were using in communicating their science. So we monitored, we listened, we had a workshop. It was a pre-corona time, and we encountered 300, even more than 300 resources and ideas, and we created a toolkit. A toolkit which is included in a web page, where we slice, as in this my stakeholder cake, where we slide the interest with the tools. So education community, with policymakers, research community, civil society organization, business and industry. We try to funnel all these 300 plus resources aimed for those 5 audiences, and then we try to also put our projects into the files like ethics, gender equality, research governance, open access, public engagement, and science education, because all those topics, those agendas are part of the responsible research innovation. And I encourage you to go on this webpage and explore. You will find some really interesting case studies. For example, this is a project called Explore Health by Kaiser Foundation, and you can really can see, for example, here I just put a case. You have media resources, you have resources for students, you have resources for teenagers, and then resources for teachers. Then you have tips or some guidelines how to engage with high school students, specifically with a relation to study life sciences. Then you have, for example, on the industrial part, you have some frameworks or guidelines is how to implement, for example, how to communicate science within the aging society. So you have several topics, also really very interesting resources. And when you plan your dissemination, try to put the written audio, all kind of, not limit yourself on press release, as I said. Try to be creative, prepare the visuals, prepare the audio statement, endorse, look for a non-governmental organization that would help. Look for any kind of endorsement that would create the relevance and the importance of your message. And plan it, prepare it, because, as we said, it's all about communication skills. And the last but not least, everybody are, in a moment we are in our working environments, we are always faced with some issues. And also in research organization, in academia and universities, everywhere you also encounter ad hoc communication issues that you have to communicate. Some of them they are positive. Some of them they are positive, like awards, like awards or something that is really positive for your institution. And sometimes it's also critical. So again, if I go back, if you have really a good communication engagement support by your research institute, then also you can control much better the issue management communication. So it's when I say issue, how to manage issue, some maybe non very friendly issue for organization, you have to have like a crisis response plan. You have to establish the internal peer review system. You have to be capable, or your leadership has to be able to communicate uncertainties, to what extent you go proactive, to what extent you go reactive, so that you are just waiting for media, or that you go proactively in media. So how you proactively publish, or how you reactively just give some statement or support. So this issue management is always almost always one issue, one objective kind of a situation, and it really goes much faster it's much better received in lay public, specifically if it's negative, if you already had some previous good reputation and managed scientific engagement in the past. So before we go to the conclusion, I would, and we go to discussion, I would just like to wrap up my hour and a half with, like, let's say five takeaways. Please remember that there is no copy paste. Science without context doesn't work. specifically science engagement. So everything, all the science engagement strategy, they cannot be copy paste. They have to be unique. You have to prepare it. It's great if it's consensual, so that a team of scientists is collaborating, working, supporting the research organization when preparing it. When when going outside, when deciding to be proactive, to go to be more strategically about your science communication, be creative and always find a relevant context. Without a relevant context, without a field or a topic where you could add on your scientific part, you will not create such an impact. All scientific engagement of your research institution, of your research team, or you as a scientist, it creates reputation. And there is a lot of spillover moments. If the research organization has a good and firm and bold communication strategy, then you, as a scientist at this research organization, the spill effect, it will pass to you. So you will be treated, created, accepted as a more relevant, scientist. That you will get some of this reputation, and the other way around. So if you have, it happens that scientists who are strong, who are proactive, and they are reputable member of the scientific community, they add to the reputation of the research institution. It's not without learning. It's not without getting the skills. It doesn't come naturally. The science communication and engagement doesn't come. Doesn't come naturally. It's a skill. It's a scientific. It's something that you have to nurture. It's not. There are some scientists who are more extroverted, they like to present, they are good at it, but still you have to implement certain skills to create a better impact and to be strategical. And last but not least, I always say to the scientists whom I work with, I always say, at the end of the day, don't be afraid of journalists, because at the end of the day, you know much more and much better about the topic than anyone else in the room. So be confident. Don't be shy. Be bold. Stand up and say the things and say your message. So. Jadranka, now again, I will ask for your help to moderate a last, let's say, 10 minutes or 10 minutes of our session. My question to the audience would be, does this resonate with your understanding of science engagement and how you would like that your research institute would progress in the future?
So we would like you to write your answers and comments in the chat. And in the meantime, I can read one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
The question is, how can we as scientists reach to the public when news on social media, even fake news, seem to be the main way of spreading disinformation? Do we need to engage more on social media? Is the role of social media larger than ever? Or do you think that relevant sources like experts, governments, journalists still get to the public?
Yeah, a very, very difficult question.
Yes, indeed.
Misinformation ranges from outdated news initially thought to be truth and disseminated in a good faith, actually. you know, we can, especially now with Corona crisis, when we encounter misinformation, disinformation, fake news, continued influence effect, and with inaccurate information. And to a certain extent, I think we created, or the society created illusionary truth effect that the vaccines are damaging, more damaging than beneficial.
And helpful.
So of social media are, of course, are good for, they are good, they are beneficial. Because they are instant. Immediately you can communicate, immediately you can react, you can overpass other types of communication, but not only this. I strongly believe that in order to fight against misinformation, which can do a lot of damage, you have to use much more other types. You know, you have to become 360 communication engagement community. You know, it's not, it's maybe publishing one pagers in a simple scribe, you know, written really simply for lay public. Maybe you could organize your web page in the way that CERN has, you know, that, you know, you go to the resources, and then you identify yourself who you are. But because when you identify who who you do belong, or you are, as we saw there, maybe a lay public, then you get the resources relevant for lay public. I think that this incredible misinformation situation was also created because of too reserved and too reactive posture of science on the side of science and research institutions. Not only to that, of course, not only to that, but could be done it better, proactively. You know, could pressure media more about inviting relevant scientific debates, not pseudoscientists, but scientific debates. I suggest, for example, in a case of issue management, and if or the scientist that I work with, or the scientific institute, the representative is invited in a main news, explaining their point of view, I always ask who you are going to face with. Will you be alone? And in a moment, as your counterpart in a dialogue is not a scientist, you can refuse, because science is ration. It's all about facts, and non-science is all about emotions. And when you encounter reason with emotion, emotion win. And when you encounter two the same level scientists, although different opinion, they catch with facts, you know, and the level of the conversation and the level of the discussion is completely different. So many reasons why we encounter this difficult situation, but can be tackled. We can learn always from this and prepare ourselves much better.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and be careful and write about everything with chosen words and
messages.
Yes, indeed. You also mentioned how researchers and scientists should pressure their research institutions to go out and be open towards media. And there is an interesting comment from one of the attendees, Rosie. She says, my institution has a PR, but I think they are more interested in promoting university policies and politics because they can come from an environment where that is more important than the science. So this is also an interesting problem of the attitude of institution towards business and finances and everything.
Yeah. Thank you for this comment. It's really very precious because science engagement is not PR. PR is one of the tools. Remember, as I said, you have many other tools, many other ways of communication, not only media and public relations. You have many forms of citizenship science. Social media gives us a possibility for positive address to address in a positive way our followers. I know that, for example, it's it's not relevant, but it's a case of citizenship science. The friend in the national, I don't know if I will. It's a national historical museum in Barcelona. I don't know how it's the right name of this museum. They encountered that one one butterfly is missing. They realized that the butterfly, that obviously due to the climate change they don't encounter one butterfly. And the scientists gather and say how we will monitor it. We have to monitor because of where are the reasons, in which areas this butterfly we cannot find anymore. So then they made the calculations, that they said that they would need millions to monitor that. And then they said, okay, what if we would ask people to collaborate? And they prepared a monitoring report. And then they asked people how to help them with monitoring that kind of a butterfly. And they give all very easy and understandable instructions. And it happened that families, they went out with picnics, they take a day off, and they went and observed the butterflies. So they get a lot of reports and reports on which really helped this institution to monitor where this butterfly is and where it disappeared. So it's just a case how you can be creative. It's not only PR. Science engagement is PR can help with certain topics, but then you can have so much more, and you can really engage with so many different things, with so many different actions or topics or messages, which are not only media, not only press release, not only statements, and not only going from one party to another party and ask for money.
Okay. Yes, there is so much we can do with good publicity and good relationship with the public and media. Unfortunately, here in ours, amongst our in our society here, we have only mostly negative experience with that. For example, there is one comment in the chat that our institution unfortunately is in the spotlight in the media, but in a very bad way, and it also shows that academic institutions also need to work on the PR, and that be aware that it is very important to engage an expert, which we don't have in most institutions, and that should become one of the aspects of their work as well. And there is some comment also that Rosie says that I completely agree with Jadranka that we as scientists have failed in informing the public in an adequate way about COVID. We should have been more timely, but authoritative and at the same time approachable. It's a hard task, and we are not educated again for that. There's a lack of knowledge about science communication and outreach. So this is agreeing with your.
Let me go to the first reflection. I have to say that reputation management is not just public relations. Reputation management is about your science, really, because you are a scientific institution or academic institution. So it's really wrong angle if research institution starts to create a reputation just from the public relation point of view. It's not the right, it's not, of course, can be helpful, it's okay, but not the only reputation management tool. The science is at the heart of one research institution. So the science should be completely exposed, and or could be it's a content of your communication strategy. So research institution has to do everything to support science and to build the reputation on science. All the rest all the rest reputations, or they are non-essential. They are non-essential. And the second comment, I would agree. I would agree with this opinion that, and I would agree, and I would encourage all the scientists to get skills, to be more confident, to take part in a dialogue if you are invited. Don't be afraid to speak up, but try to control the environment, because a dialogue with where you are the only scientist, it's not equal, where you are the only scientist among non-scientists. It's usually can put you in some trouble. So surround yourself with colleagues and support each other with this scientific with this confidence to speak up and to speak out.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's a great point, that science and education should be focus of institutions output. There is one comment, just actually question, how can our participants get in contact with you? They'd like to hear more about the science dissemination.
I put my email address. You can contact me. You can contact me, and I will be, and I have to say, and I will be glad to share my knowledge. And I also have to give thanks that I had an opportunity to present also my knowledge, my approach, my experiences in within this scientific community. It's really for me, honestly, it's an honor. It's an honor. Thank for Dalibor Jakuš, who invited me and pitched me actually. But I hope that I give you some confidence, that I give you some views, that you are not alone with your research, but you are as a member of research institute, you are entitled to some strategy and entitled to advanced in your capacities, in your communication skills, and that will definitely make you a better scientist.
Indeed. Right. Yes. Thank you very much. Well,
yeah, so thank you.
Thank you very much. So Dalibor obviously is an example that we have a good PR for our conference. Thank you so much for sharing all your experience and knowledge here in this workshop, and hopefully we can continue this cooperation with you. We'll be in touch, and perhaps, as you said, this is not only about journalists, so we can expand it to some more discussion and with others, and in some maybe next workshop or panel discussion or something for some other next conferences to come in the next years, probably hopefully live in Zadar.
Yes, you know, meet and have a workshop live is much more fun.
Yes, indeed.
Much more fun. Well, this is not bad as well,
No,
but
no, it's okay.
but let's keep the fingers crossed that we have an opportunity
to meet together. All right, so I will thank you once again on behalf of all the organizers and myself. Thank you for this lovely time here, and we'll see you soon. We'll take a short break now before we start with our next workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.